Whitehall, I have the fabulous honor. It is my extreme pleasure, and I'm not exaggerating, to welcome all of our guests, all of the students, to the dedication of the Whitehall Elementary School. This is a very special day for us. We'll begin this day in a fairly traditional way by asking everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you please remain standing for America?
Street is of the sweet land of liberty, of the I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrims proud, from every mountainside, let freedom ring.
Thank you. Please be seated. As a special treat for our audience today, Mrs. LaRue and the children have planned some special welcome songs. Mrs. LaRue?
Excellent, smart. Fourth grade. Cannot go off to the races. Okay? Pencils. Here we go. Watch. Excellent. Excellent. Fifth grade. I know you're back there. You got a snap in front of you. Sing out. Sit up, please. Here we go. A little louder. A little bit shy, fifth grade. Sing out a little bit more when we say. Are you ready? Fourth grade.
Mrs. LaRue is constantly reminding me that sometimes stopping is the hard part. Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, when planning the opening of Whitehall, we made a conscious decision to hold off on this dedication, which sometimes happens when the school first opens, to hold off on it until we developed a sense of identity, of who we are as Whitehall School. As you know, we've come from, as teachers, from every single one of the other district schools. And as students, you've come from at least 5 of our elementary schools, of our sister schools here in the district. From the very start, though, we were bound together by this beautiful building, and we're very happy to be here. We're also bound by our common mission. But to strengthen those bonds, for the past 2.5 months, we've been learning about each other and learning to work together. I think we've come a long way. Do you agree? We've been supported in these efforts, of course, by the members of the school board, Dr. Holton and his cabinet, by the principals and the staffs of all of the other elementary schools. In addition, probably every central office administrator, secretary, operations department person was able to help us in some crisis or other to solve some problem, and every single person has been extremely helpful. The problems, therefore, that we expected in opening a new school have diminished dramatically as a result of the hard work and cooperation of countless community friends, of school people, of the parents who volunteer a lot of their time here in the building, and of all of you who have worked together so well. For all of your ongoing efforts, I thank you on my behalf and on that of the school, the staff, the faculty, the children, and of course the parents. Opening this school is an adventure for all of us. It has been and it will be. For the next many years, you'll have an opportunity to watch us and to work with us as we grow and develop. But we were thinking, in 20 years from now, we probably would like to remember today. And today, November 20th, 1992, is our dedication day. So we've planned a way to help us to remember and to look back. In 20 years from now, some of you sitting in the audience will have children, and maybe some of them will come to Whitehall. 20 years from now, we're planning to open a time capsule that we are going to create today, and that we're going to put into the walls of the building. It will be behind the dedication plaque, which is in our main lobby. The children have chosen many items, and they're going to be presenting them to you throughout the program. There are also some building items that I thought I would point out to you. We're going to have a list of all of the students who came into the building on the first day. It's a paper copy, because we're also going to put a computer copy of lots of the data that I will describe. This is a Macintosh disk. Who knows in 20 years if we'll even be able to put this into a machine and still be able to read it, but it will be fun to try. We'll put a copy of our handbook. We have a number of photographs to include, and perhaps most interestingly, there is a videotape of each one of you who came here on your first day, coming into the building. We're going to include that, keep it in the wall, view it in 20 years. So I invite all of you to come back in 20 years for the 20th year anniversary, so that we can look at some of these things and look back on how we were today. Now, as I mentioned, in addition to these items, you will hear throughout the program what the children and their teachers have chosen and they've made to keep in the time capsule for the future. All of the items that you will see today will be displayed in the display case in the lobby. We would like to show them to you so you know what will be stored away, because then it will be stored, it will be wrapped as permanently as we know how, and put away forever and ever until 20 years from now. Let's begin with the children's suggestion from the kindergarten. So would our kindergarten presenters please come up?
We would like to represent the 1992-1993 kindergarten class at Whitehall. We would like to dedicate these books about ourselves.
Thank you, kindergarten. time, I'd like to introduce Dr. James N. Holton. He's the superintendent of schools here in Norristown. We're happy to have him with us today.
What a great day this is. When you boys and girls were singing that music at the beginning of our dedication today, we're singing a round, as you know, as you sing row, row, row your boat or what have you. For that to be successful, that means that different people with different jobs and different tasks have to coordinate and cooperate with each other. This group, and this group all sang different things, but it came together in a fine piece of music. I think it's symbolic of why we're here today. We're here today because of the efforts of many people who've had different tasks to do. They've gotten along magnificently. They have brought a building in way under schedule, or ahead of schedule, for a lot fewer dollars than originally anticipated. That's no easy task. And I'd like to acknowledge those people first of all. I'm going to keep my comments relatively brief. But we have, representing the planning board of the spring of 1989, two board members with us today whom I would like to stand, Mr. Donald Morgan and Mr. Clarence Rader. Would you please stand and be recognized? And let's say good morning. Mr. Morgan and Mr. Rader, our sincere apologies too, because your invitations came a little later than they should have, and I regret that. But we'll do better next time. And again, please don't let that minimize our tremendous appreciation for all the hours that you put on this particular project. Other board members at that time were Gary Smith, Mrs. Betty Carson, and Mr. Charles McNew, Mrs. Oreo, and Mr. Elmendorf as treasurer. And they're not here today for a variety of reasons. Other board members also in that planning board, and you have programs so you can see just who they are, but those here today and those on the current board as well, I would like you to stand if you would please. Mr. Murray Toes will also have remarks later on, our current board president. Mr. Toes, would you please stand? Mrs. Lobb is here with us in the back. Mr. Christie, would you please stand? Mrs. Custer. Dr. Howard, and we welcome his wife with him here today also. Mrs. Howard, and Mrs. Nancy Hundley, would you please stand? Let's give them a hand. The current board, of course, had to follow through on the planning board's original ideas and make sure that this came through to completion and was followed through in every detail. Mr. Kenneth Johnson, Dr. Vernon Parker, Mr. Precyson, are not here today because of other very important commitments, and they do send us their best wishes. The superintendent's cabinet was also, of course, intimately involved in all of the planning. Dr. Whitney is not here today. She was given an invitation. She had a tremendous role in the educational planning. Mr. Scott was Director of Pupil Services. Mr. Dimmick was Director of Human Resources. Mr. Long is, I hope, here today. And of course, Mr. Thomas Patton with the original planning cabinet. And today, I would like these people to stand if they would. Mr. Shields, Director of Human Resources. Dr. Maldy and Mr. Brasloff, would you stand please? Supervisors of Mathematics and Reading. There's a symbolism here, because Dr. Maldy led the effort to design the curriculum for this building so that it would be current and forward-looking into the 21st century. And Mr. Brasloff picked up his predecessor's role as soon as he arrived in Norristown. Mrs. Ming, you're also here representing the principals. I'd like you to stand if you would. I'd also just like to say that other principals, everyone had a hand in the planning of this building. And Mrs. Ming, because of the addition of Marshall Street, really learned a lot, was able to help us out in terms of what we could do even better. And Dr. Gould, Assistant Superintendent of Schools, very important for the curriculum development here. And Dr. Carfagno, another principal at Paul Fly School. Would you please stand, Teresa, representing that role? Okay, thank you. Let's give them a round. Now comes the gentleman who met with us and planned this building. The architect, he's the gentleman that we sat with and we said, Mr. Dicerow, this is what we would like to see in the Norristown area school district. It was his job to put those plans into action. So Mr. Dicerow, you designed this building and you did a beautiful job. Would you please stand up and be recognized? Mr. Dicerow. Not here today is another man who did an incredible job, Mr. Frank Skepton. He's the gentleman who put together the actual construction of the building, Skepton Contractors, and we thank him heartily. Don't have to applaud at this time for that. We could not have done what we did without the help and the assistance and partnership with West Norriton Township, to say the least. From the township commissioners right on through almost every department, the cooperation was total. Representing West Norriton today is Chief Paul Sharp of the police department and Sergeant Richard Stewart. Would the two of you stand just a moment, please? I want to mention a couple of things about your work. It was their job to build a school like this. We had to look at how the buses would come in, traffic patterns on Whitehall Road, safety, security, all kinds of different details had to be worked out. And to Mr. Paul Sharp and again to Sergeant Stewart, thank you so much for all that you did to help to make this a success. I've had some very nice notes that Mr. Toes and I have from the West Norriton Commissioners thanking us for the partnership. They were unable to be here today for a variety of reasons. We do really, truly appreciate all that they've done. We have an East Norriton supervisor here today, Mr. Joseph Bronco. Would you please stand, please? And also accompanied by Mr. Lewis McBurns, also representing the supervisors of East Norriton Township. Thank you so much. Officer Dwayne Herbert is representing the borough. Would you please stand and be recognized? Officer Herbert. Other people that come to my mind, and you're just going to have to bear with me a minute because the worst thing we can do is not to say how much we appreciate their work. Building Inspector Joe Hine was very helpful. The Fire Department Chief, Cliff Jacobs, did a wonderful job. I also would like to thank publicly Mr. Charles Potash. I can't tell you how many hours he spent on the legal details necessary here. The entire administrative team, and here's where Mr. Tom Padden comes in. Tom, are you here? If not, I want to acknowledge him publicly. It was his job to coordinate all kinds of details in the construction of this building. I do believe Mr. Licata, if you raise your hand in the back, is here, and Mr. Al Martin, who worked very closely together. Talk about detail. They had to come over here and make sure the electricity was going correctly, the lighting, the plumbing, everything of that nature. It was not easy. Mr. Bob Noblet, let's give you a hand for all the work that you did. You began your custodial position here very, very early in the whole process and worked with us from beginning to end. And what a beautiful job you did. David Waters, clerk of the works, is he here today? If so, raise your hand. Okay, he's not. Now for another word of appreciation here to Mrs. Maggie Hall. Would you stand, please, Maggie, representing the parents. It was Mrs. Hall who very early in the process said, let's think ahead. Let's plan ahead so we can have a fine parent club council here. And the first Parent Club Council President is President Jim Acton. Would you stand, please, Jim, representing You're a charter leader of this school, and I know you're very proud of that. Is there anyone that I might have forgotten? If so, just come up to the side and tell me during the rest of the program, and then we'll make those corrections later on. This school, in my 1 or 2 minutes of remarks, is extremely efficient. It's extremely modern. It has an air conditioning system that uses electricity at off-peak hours, and it costs $2 to $4 less per square foot than a conventional system. It has a low-maintenance masonry building construction, durable terrazzo floors, low ceilings, which makes it feel warm and hospitable. If you're walking around and have a warm feeling about it, it's because of these design features that make it a warm school. Of course, the children make it totally warm when you come into this building when they're singing and welcoming. It's wired for a computer network that is as modern as it can possibly be. Now we have to find the financing in the future to make sure that we have the computers that we need here to do the job that we want to do, and the board is working on that. Safety systems are unparalleled, thanks to Chief Sharp, and thanks to Joe Hine and to Cliff Jacobs. I'm talking about fire, I'm talking about everything in that regard. It's well designed for traffic flow through the building. Mr. Rogers is going to have some tours after this. Notice how freely the flow is as you go from one area to another. It has handicapped access, the most modern you can find. It has classroom areas that offer lots of storage space when you're walking through the building. You have freedom to move around. A regulation-sized gymnasium, library, and cafeteria. And yes, Mrs. Ming, we learned about the acoustics from Marshall Street and made it better here in terms of acoustics, and we're working on Marshall Street at the same time. The Science Center that facilitates experimentation and hands-on work. Beautiful science center that we have here. Elementary schools tend to downplay science and not do the job we should be doing. A fine sound system. Not only that, it was completed in March of 1992, 5 months ahead of schedule. It was $850,000 under its $7,400,000 budget. It cost $7.5 million to build this beautiful facility. We came in on the schedule. We're talking about 74,000 square feet, 28 classrooms, with the ability to add on, thanks to Mr. Morgan and to the planning board at that time. If we had a population growth, we can always add on going out that way. And again, it was done with the cooperation of many people. Now I want to come to the very, very important group of people that made this place go, and that's the teachers that you see sitting over here and throughout the district. Before we planned a classroom, we sat down with the teachers and said, what do you want in your classrooms? And they said, we want storage space, lighting, we want the rooms to be of different colors. All of those kinds of things. The librarians especially were called in and asked their opinions, because the library has to be the center of the building. And at Whitehall Elementary School, that's exactly what happened. We also have kindergarten classrooms that are especially designed with carpeting and play areas, and as I say, all kinds of other things too that are too lengthy to mention at this time. In sum, I just want to thank everyone for being here today. I've had several people ask me during the last few days, is this an open dedication? And the answer is no, because we don't have the space. We wanted to make sure that children were here today at this very historic event. So I've asked Mr. Rogers if he could figure out sometime in the future another open house. We're going to try to do that so more people can come in. Mr. Rogers, how many people did you have that first day for the open house?
We had over 500 in this.
Over 500 went through the building when we first opened it and came through our halls. And we have many, many more, even hundreds maybe, that want to see the facility. So we're going to try to arrange something like that. So once again, all of you, thank you so much. And Mr. Rogers, you've done a wonderful job.
Well, continuing with the time capsule, could I have my first grade presenters come up?
We made pictures of what we like to do from room 108. We made flags to show what we like to do. We made picture what we like to do in school.
This time, I'm going to invite Mr. Murray Toes to bring us remarks from the Board of School Directors. He is the president currently.
Thanks very much, Mr. Rogers. Before I start, I just want to mention that Mr. Ed McCandless, who's a West Norton Township manager, is here also. Mr. McCandless, could you please rise? Thank you, Mr. Good morning. As you have heard, building this magnificent school, this magnificent Whitehall Elementary School, has required the efforts of many people working together and has taken many steps. But the most important step of putting this school together is still in progress. And that's the task of building a united, cooperative community of school staff, parents, and student learners. And of those three groups, you, the students, have the most important job. Your job of learning, studying, and helping each other is at the center of this school's mission and this school's spirit. Your job is difficult, but it's also exciting and fun. And I think that probably many adults in this room would like to be elementary school students again and be starting in this wonderful school here today. You children, like all of us here, are lucky to be part of a wonderful community consisting of all kinds of people. People of different races, religions, income level, ethnic origin, and professions. There's no better place to learn how to be a citizen of the United States and a citizen of the world. And this Norristown area community cares deeply about your education and your learning. All of us want to see you students do well in school. Your principal, Mr. Rogers, your teachers, the office workers, the cafeteria staff, maintenance workers, and your bus drivers are all dedicated to your success and your enjoyment in this school. They are all working together to build a school environment where they would be proud to send their own children. And your parents, your friends, your relatives are always ready to give you encouragement and give you a helping hand. But your learning is primarily your responsibility. It's up to you. No one can learn for you. Your learning is important to your future and the future of our country and our community. And you are also very important to the future of this school. You are the first group of Whitehall Elementary students. You are the leaders and the pioneers in the history of the Whitehall Elementary School. You make the path and you set the example for all future students to follow. And we know that all of you here will work to build a team of students, the Whitehall Elementary team, a team of students who help each other and care for each other to make sure all of you learn and all of you are happy. And all of us in the Norristown Area School District wish you students well. We look forward to your continued success, and we thank you for your hard work and your teamwork. And we thank you for what you presented here this morning, and we look forward to the rest of this program also. Thank you.
Well, now it's time for our grade 2 presentation. Could I have my grade 2 students coming up?
Who's a time capsule? The second grade would like to present the book Danny and the Dinosaur. And some dinosaur fruit snacks.